is your window, which I fix right now. Boom. Uh, let's hope that I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna start the stream just because it feels like everything is working right
Nice.
now, and I don't want it to stop. And if I touch something right now, it's gonna be like not.
The time has
Yeah,
been
I
good.
know,
I've had a
and
lot of
obviously
time, as
super
I'm sure
excited that you're
everybody
with
else
us
has,
here
to
in the
be
utility room.
by
That is Kenny
themselves,
Glasgow.
which in
Super
this
dope.
case,
Yes, thanks
I
for being with
was
us
able to
down
get a lot
in
of
the
work done in
room,
the
the most
studio, and
underground room in house,
can't
perhaps.
focus on making music as opposed
How
to
you doing?
doing the
How
travel.
is
Because
how's this time been?
before the whole thing went down, I was doing a lot of traveling and not getting enough time in the studio. And I always said, I wish I can have some more time in the studio. Be careful what you wish for. Because I've had a whole year in the studio now. I know it very well. Um, yeah, your body takes a toll. It takes a
was there
toll on your
a
body. Your
form of a
body takes a
shock
beating.
to
All
the
the
system
flights,
for
all
you
the
as a
early
person, not just
mornings,
as a performer,
all
just I
the
mean personally, did you feel the
13-hour
shock that
flights, or
from the
8-hour
go
flights
go
from here to
go of
London,
the
or
routine
from here to Europe.
of touring,
So
and then all of a
once all
sudden,
of that
and then not?
stops, it's like your body is still on go. I've been doing it like this for, burning the candle on both ends for years. So it's used to that. So it took a little while for the body to slow down and the brain to make everything, focus on what's going on, which is you're not going to be. So now it's time for you to slow down and start to think about the things that you can do while you're in slow pace mode. And that's what brought me into being more focused on. I had to focus on something because I was still in fast mode. So I focused on being in my studio and making music.
Would you say that a lot of momentum, the creative momentum that was happening
It's just
for you
more
when you
output
were out
because I have
touring,
more
doing the
time
shows,
to be in the studio.
this fuel
And
for
I've
the
I've
output could
also,
have been
because you
musically,
spend
is
as
it
much
stayed the
time in
same
a
because
certain
now
place,
the
you get to
touring is
know
not
it better.
happening?
So I
Has
know
the
the
musical
machines a lot
process
better than I
for
did
genre, for flavor,
before
this output, has it changed a little
this
bit?
whole pandemic thing started and I was on the road traveling. I'd only have a certain amount of time in the studio when I came home from being on the road, like 4 or 5 shows in a week, to slow down and then be in the studio and still get sleep and, try to lead somewhat of a normal life. It was hectic. So I didn't know the machines as well as I know them now. I know how to utilize them to the best of their ability to make what I'm doing sound as good as it can possibly sound. I wouldn't give it a label. I was trying to work on something that wasn't techno,
Pre-pandemic, what
but had
was the
elements of
sound of
techno,
Kenny
and wasn't
Glasgow? Would
house,
you
but
label
had
it as
elements
house,
of house.
techno,
But I don't
tech
want to call
house?
it tech house because it's definitely not tech house. It's I would like to just call it my own brand of electronic music. I don't have a name for it yet, but I'll let you know when I do. But it is basically a 4/4, which can be, at a tempo of 126, at a basic tempo of 126, with elements of techno, but still having a good flavor of house. You know what I mean? I come from the old school. I've been DJing since '89, first paid for gig, up until now. So it's been a long journey, and I've gone through a lot of different types of music, as you know. Um, I've gone through. I started out playing like acid jazz and some breakbeats and some house, some garage, straight into like some Detroit and some techno, back into house, and then, into Chicago house. Worked at the record store, started being more eccentric with my music and with the type of music. Got into the electro scene, so I kind of done it all. And when it comes to production, I want it to kind of be the same. I don't want it to be I don't want to pigeonhole myself and say I'm a techno DJ, a techno producer. Even with DJ, I don't want to pigeon myself as I'm a techno DJ or I'm a house DJ. I'm just a DJ that I feel plays good music and likes to share that with others. And the same thing with making music. I feel that I've been doing this for long enough to say that I feel I'm good enough to be making music that is just good music. You know what I mean? I don't want to label it. Anybody else can label it if they want to, but for me, it's just good music. I,
Could you take us back to
yeah.
1989? This first paid for a gig that you're talking about. What was the bite before the for the gig? What was the DJ bite for you? Where you were like, I want to do this. I
Which
want
was
to
the
be in front of
reason? You mean the
people. I
reason
want to
why I
share
did
music.
what I did?
No, I'm asking what was the bite? Yeah, I guess what was the moment pre 1989 before the gig happened? What was the moment
I
that you
was
knew? I guess the
hanging
call,
out in
the
record
bite that
shops,
happened for you.
play the record, Star Sound, a couple of the other ones that were around, and I was meeting the DJs, and I had found out about these after parties, after warehouse parties that were being thrown. You know, if you hang around long enough, you know, you'd hear people calling this record store, talking to Tyrone and being like, yo, so where's the party at tonight? You know, and Tyrone would be like, oh, so here's the party. Finally, when I made friends with these guys, I was like, I'm gonna come and check you guys out and see what this is all about. At this point, I was more of a collector of records. So I was building, knowing that at some point I would want to be a DJ, but still learn in the learning process of what a DJ, what it is about to be a DJ. So I went to go see these guys DJ at these warehouse parties. You know, I'd carry the records in, be the record lackey, be the guy, you know, get in free at the party, hang out with the DJs. And I learned by watching them and seeing them and saying to myself, this is definitely something that I wanted to do and something that I think I can do and do good. So I kept collecting records, and by 1989, I had played a few friends' house parties, and I had enough records to pull off an hour and a half, an hour 45-minute set, you know, without replaying any of the records. So there was a promoter at the time named Tony Duncan. He used to more promote hip hop parties, but was starting to do these house parties at this club called Cat Club on King Street. It was a fresh club at the time, small club, about 150 people at the time, packed. And basically, he was kind of a shady guy, but you didn't know if you were going to get paid or not. So I definitely wasn't thinking I was going to get paid. Not what he told me I was going to get paid, but I did it because I needed the experience and I thought that I was ready. This was going to be my debut in Toronto. So I did the gig, and surprisingly, I got paid half the money that he told me, but at least I made some money. And this was the realization that I can do this, and I can do it as a living, money doing it, and it's an honest living. You know what I mean? And that was my first initial bite, my taste of being a DJ and DJing for an audience and making money doing it and seeing it as a career.
When you first had that moment, that realization, did you see this decades later? Did you see yourself going on crazy long flights to far off places of planet Earth
It
and
was
ending up in a major motion picture, doing these things, having these experiences? Was this on the forefront? Was this the possibility of DJs?
it wasn't the possibility of your local DJ in Toronto. It was a possibility of maybe a DJ in New York, definitely a DJ in Europe, but for a local DJ, there were only guys like, you know, Nick Holder, um, who else that was on the big scale, that was doing international gigs. There wasn't many, man. It was basically Nicky. He was my guy who was out there, and I was like, I can't believe this guy's playing in Germany. They're flying him to play and paying him and putting him up in a hotel. Is this what can happen? There was guys like that I looked at. You know, he's from my hometown, Toronto, and he was, you know, making music, and he had his record label D&H, and I was like, if it's possible for him, it's possible for others. So I said to myself, I was working at the record store, and I was, at the time, I would like to consider myself a big fish in a small pond. And it wasn't until I got representation from Ronnie Most Wanted, who started shopping me out, an industry nightclub opened, and I was DJing with other international DJs who saw the talent. Was I able to, for my first gigs playing in America, you know what I mean? Leaving even Toronto to play in Vancouver or Montreal, I was like, this can happen. This is something that it is fresh. It's still new. The traveling DJ is still new. It's still new to the world, but it's especially new to Toronto. You know, not a lot of people were doing it. You know, Adam Marshall and those guys were doing it for techno. Jeremy Coffey were doing it for techno. They had left Toronto and gone to Berlin. So I know that this thing can happen. So I said, all right, I'm gonna focus on being a DJ. And I left. I was in college at the time. I was there for a year and a half. I left college, started working at the record store, and became somewhat the big fish in a small pond, which was Toronto. And then again, once I got representation, I started to feel how it would be to travel and leave Toronto and DJ for people that just didn't know me. You know what I mean? They just had heard of me. And it's a fresh crowd. I can actually see that if I have talent here. And from there, you know, things just started escalating to the point where I met Johnny. Well, I did a whole bunch of things in between, the whole JMK and the, you know, the industry thing. And then it moved into meeting a partner like Johnny. And then the art department thing started. And then that's when my eyes opened up to the international living of a DJ and the start of how, you know, when we started, we just got thrown in the game. It wasn't like you build your way, you play here, but it's just like you're playing DC-10 Friday, you're playing DC-10 on Monday, and then you're gonna go do a tour and you're gonna be on the road for you're gonna play 13 gigs in 10 days. That's how it started. And we're new to this thing. We're like, what the hell is it? What did he just say? 13 gigs in 10 days? How do we do that? He's like, well, a couple of the days you're going to be playing in the afternoon, flying out, and then playing in the night. You know, these are the things we just had to instantly be like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to put our game faces on and get into game mode and just do it, suck it up.
What launched this? What happened? I mean, yes, the formation of the partnership with Johnny. Yes, Art Department. Was it a specific song, a remix, a bootleg? What was it that happened that you guys did that you feel was the trigger that got pulled to moving into this direction?
We had been handing Damian Lazarus, head honcho for Crosstown Rebels, music for quite some time. And he'd be like, yeah, guys, you know, it's cool. I would hand him some things and Johnny would hand him something together. You know what I mean? You guys are from Toronto. Just try something together. So we started handing him stuff and he was like, yeah, this is cool. It's still not what I'm looking for the label. And then he said, I'm going to give you guys a remix project. And he gave us something called, I think it was called Riz MC. We remixed and he really liked it. So then he said, I really like the remix, so I'm going to put it out. After that, me and Johnny started thinking, well, he didn't like any of our solo stuff together. So obviously, if we put our minds together, we can put something together that he might be interested in. So let's get a studio date together and work out something. So we'd come to my house, we worked on a few things, and then he started the name Art Department, and it was supposed to be a record label for the music that we put out, but we decided to use it as a name of a band or of a group. And we started working in the studio together, and we produced with and Vampire Nightclub songs that we played for Damien, that he said, I want an album deal. I want to work on an album. He had never heard anything like it before. And it was a sound that wasn't out there. And he wanted to be the first to capture us. We were both DJs, so we could market ourselves as DJs and we can promote ourselves as DJs, so we didn't have to worry about that. And all we had to do is worry about is making the music and making this album. So after he signed the 2 songs, we decided to get really serious in the studio, and we put out the album, The Drawing Board. and that was the beginning of everything that started everything. That album, but
You feel that the album was the trigger that made you guys.
the two tracks were the trigger, but that triggered the album, which triggered us, which catapulted us to be the number three DJ worldwide, and for RA, have the number one song worldwide for RA, which was Without You, um, and had us, as important DJs, trendsetters, music trendsetters. Our music was called by DJ Magazine Gunk, which was gothic funk. Um, that was their word. The terminology of the sound that we were producing was gunk. I was like, all right, I like it, and you know what I mean. It was vocals that were kind of dark and twisted, sometimes pitched down, sometimes pitched up, mixed with these disco erotica kind of beats and synth lines, dark synth lines. You know what I mean? It was something that nobody else was doing at the time, and with these bass lines that were just like funky and just were always moving. So it worked in the clubs. You know what I mean? And that's how we got got to where we are, because we started that sound, and other DJs and other producers started making music that sounded like that, but we were the beginning of that sound.
Did
And
you
that's
find
what
when you were first went out, you guys had an idea in your minds musically where you wanted to be, what that output was going to be like, um, whether it was recorded or in a live setting. Did you find that got changed when you began touring together? Did that there was an influence from the settings of clubs, parties, festivals that maybe gave you a different step towards a direction that maybe you guys wouldn't have gone in, but because you're doing the shows, you were seeing a response. Did this happen for you, or were you guys
absolutely
you were on your plan, you were on your mission unchanged?
no. It's funny you say that, because when we started, we got hired as DJs, as art department, because of the music that we were making, not because anybody had heard us as DJs, because we were still just local Toronto DJs, just about to break out. And like I said, our first gigs were a Friday night with Tonya Volcano at DC 10, and then the legendary Monday night Circle Local night, opening both nights. We went in there and we played starting at 115 beats per minute to 122 at the most. That was the fastest we played. They weren't really used to that. That was what we played. And we weren't going to change, because you hired us knowing that this is the music that we make, this is the tempo we make it at, and basically this is how we play, and this is the kind of music we play at this tempo. So we went in there with that mentality, and it worked for a while. We played Panorama Bar, after Cassie, who was playing at 130 beats per minute techno, and we rolled in there and started playing at 118. We went in there focused that this is what we're doing, we're not going to change. By the end of it all, after playing festivals and realizing and playing, different clubs around the world, is that every place is different. And every time you go and you play somewhere, it's not going to be the same people you're playing for. It's not going to be the same club you're playing at. So you got to go in there thinking, I'm going to play for the people. And you have to be able to be versatile in the music that you're playing if you're going to play these venues. If I'm going to be playing these festivals, playing 1 hour, hour and a half sets, come in, I have to be able to come in and slam it right after the other DJ, and then on the same breath, play the after party, bring it down maybe a little, or bring it up. I have to be able to do that. Before, I wouldn't even be thinking about doing that. I'd be like, you know what? This is what we play. This is what you get. You know what I mean? But being a professional DJ and you're getting paid to do these parties, you're being paid to perform. And unfortunately, I don't play any music that I don't like. That's one thing I would say. I play everything I play. It maintains the integrity of the music, maintains my integrity of what I feel about the song or the music that I'm playing. I don't go out there and just play for the crowd. I play for the crowd and myself. If I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, then I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm not doing. I'm definitely doing it for myself more than anything, and I'm just happy that there is an audience, a listening audience that likes what I'm doing.
Not just likes.
And I
Not
thank
just
them very
likes.
much. The fans are very important. You know, they've kept me being able to do what I do on the road and in the studio. You know what I mean? The things that I like to do. I like to entertain and I like to, you know, be in my studio and make music. And it's because of them is why I can do it. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Kenny, you had the opportunity to play truly small, intimate venues, even at the time when perhaps you wanted to be in something much larger. Uh, Hustled, worked your way into bigger and bigger and bigger rooms until finally the festival floors. Do you think that this is the best path for somebody who wants to perform with turntables and a mixer to be a DJ? Is working your way up the way to go? Do you find that you were able to pull from your experiences from these small rooms and apply it to the festival floor? Or vice versa, take the experiences that you were having from the festival floors when you were able to go back to the small rooms. Did this help you?
I think it's important to be a versatile DJ, to be a DJ that can say, you know, he can please any crowd. You have to start from somewhere. So it's important to start playing smaller parties. Like you can't just get into the profession and say, boom, I'm just starting to DJ and you know what? I want to just get right into playing festivals. I don't think that's the way you know the DJ should start. Everything has to have a start, an in between, and a conclusion. You can't just start with the conclusion. You have to have a story. You have to be like, okay, you know, I played these warehouse parties, and I think my experience of that DJ that did that, that threw these warehouse parties, that played at his own warehouse parties because no one else would hire him, and then worked my way up into playing, you know, all the way up to playing into festivals and everything in between. I have a special love for playing these small parties. You know what I mean? I can tell the difference. I could say, you know, I know because I have played small parties that it's way more intimate playing to a crowd of people that I'm on the dance floor DJing and I'm surrounded, as opposed to being on the high pedestal with about 100 security guards in front of me, 100 feet in front of me, and then another 100 feet, the VIP crowd, and then another 100 feet behind them, the audience that are really there to see me and to feel me. How are they feeling me if they're way? I like to be felt. You know what I mean? I don't get that feeling when I'm playing those huge festivals. Not to mention I'm playing an hour and a half, and when I'm done, the next DJ that comes on, I'm already forgotten by his third song. When I play these small intimate parties, it's like I get longer sets. I play. It's more I can play what I want to play. You know what I mean? These are the things you have to learn as a DJ too. It's not your. It's not your your set when you're on a festival. It's everybody's set. You know what I mean? You're on someone else's set and somebody else is on your set. But when you're at this small party, this is your party. It's up to you. You can make the crowd. You can start from here and bring it up to here because you have the time to do it and you have the audience to do it for. At the festivals, you have to realize that you don't have, you know, 3 hours. You have an hour and a half to show what you can do, and I hate to say it, somehow show up the DJ before you, or play as good as the DJ, at least play as good as the DJ before you. So it's all a learning experience, and I feel the best way to learn is to start traditionally. If you can start on turntables, even better, because that's the traditional way of starting. But I understand if you're just going to get directly into you're playing, you know, nowadays a good turntable setup is hard to find as it is. So, you know, if you're just using CDJs, learn them, learn how to use them properly, and learn them in the right environments.
What is the plan for you? Do you have a plan in mind that is post pandemic? Uh, an idea of what it is that you want to get accomplished once we've all been poked in the arm and we're able to get out there and stand next to each other with reckless abandon. what is the idea that you've got in your mind? Is there something that you want to do? And this is what I guess I was asking earlier on. Is the music this feel that you had before the lockdown happened, before we were all stuck inside, where you were at with music, the vibe?
It
Was
was
it
good.
was it was it gunk before the
It was.
pandemic? Is it still gunk now? Is
It's not. The music now is different. That before the pandemic, because the gunk is what was art department. My solo stuff in art department. I haven't been with art department for almost 4 years now. So the stuff that I've been making has been coming from the gunk or art department music. The stuff that I'm making, again, is because I come from house music, has old school house flavor to it with a new sound of the techno. You know what I mean? It's not done at 122 beats per minute. It's more done at 126 to 128 at its fastest pace. So, it's just more moving, more driving. The kids, the people that are listening to this type of music now, they want it a bit more faster, but I don't want to give it. I don't want to lose the funk and the flow in the actual tracks by making it, just so pounding. I want it to still be enjoyed by ladies that could dance to it and guys, just to have fun and to party with, it's party music, but still have a classic end to it and have some longevity and maintain some integrity of it, not just putting out tracks for putting out track sakes, but putting out proper tracks. That's where I was. Now I'm separating myself. There's Kenny Glasgow, and there's a new project called Kenny Glasgow Presents the Logan 6 Project. Logan 6 Project has developed since the pandemic arrived. I have an album coming out. It's already out from mastered, 10 tracks. There's 20 tracks, but the first 10 will come out and will be out for 3 months on Bandcamp. Should be out in the beginning of March. 10 tracks. That is during this whole pandemic thing. And that is basically Logan 6, the sound of Logan 6. That sound it's got like a disco element, but still driving with a good techno, it's a combination of, it is a proper combination of techno and house music. And that is basically the sound that I'm pushing. It's different than what other people are putting out purposely though, because I want to do something that is different. You only really, in my eyes, you only really get noticed when you do something different. It may be horribly different and you get noticed for doing something that's garbage, what you don't want, but you hope for the best and you hope that what you're doing is appreciated. And I test it out. I test it out on my social media. I put out, a 3-minute clip, a 5-minute clip, and I see what people think. And there's a good enough response for me to say that I feel comfortable putting out an album of this type of music. So that is where I'm going and pushing to do some tours, to tour for the album, and just to get back out on the road. Not as much as I was. I don't want to slave myself like how I slaved myself before, but I do miss DJing, and I would want to get back to where I was and be, the entertainer that I was made to be. I still got some juice in me.
when you were together doing art department,
Mm-hmm.
the writing process, I'm assuming, had a lean, both back and forth, because you're not by yourself. The cooperation, the collaboration.
Yeah.
Now that you're on your own, um, do you ever stop and have a ghost moment where you look over at perhaps something that was once there is not there, and now you're on your own? What is the influence now that you're by yourself? What is that writing process like?
I enjoy, I'm not going to lie, even with art department, I was like a greedy bastard. I would be like, I would want to write the whole thing for myself, to tell you the honest truth. And the way it works with me and Johnny is we were seldom in the studio together, except for in our second album. we rented a space and I brought some of my gear in and we worked together maybe twice. But for the most part, it would be me in my studio. I would write the music, a little bit of percussion, more as a metronome to the music, and then I would write my vocals and then record my vocals. And then take that, send those parts over to him. But in the meantime, while he's working on it, working on putting more percussion to it, I'm already at home finishing the track. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy finishing my own tracks. What the dynamic is between the two of us is that he was able to take the bits and bobs that I gave him and turn something. When I gave him Without You, I was never thinking it was gonna be a hit. You know what I mean? I thought it was just gonna be a cool track where my voice was pitched down and it had a cool bass line, you know, boom, 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 boom. And I sent that to him with a little bit of percussion and some disco sound, doo doo, doo doo, doo doo. He took it, slapped it together, did what Johnny does, and he made it the track of Ibiza for that year. And again, made it the number one track for RA for that year too. And it was the track that made Art Department Art Department. So I do miss, I do and I don't miss because I still finished the track. I would have finished the track differently, but I do miss the polish and that Johnny added and what he added to the music and to the production, you know, the way that the music was made. It was definitely a 50-50 in some of the songs. A lot of the songs, I wrote the whole thing by myself just because I didn't really write the music that he was writing. I wasn't really singing. I only sang if it's music. If my voice is on it, that means I wrote the music to it. And then, if anything, he wrote a little bit of the percussion, except for Vampire Nightclub and Without You. The rest of the stuff I wrote, and it was done under the Art Department name. I just like to, I see a vision of the way a track my voice is on is supposed to go, and I just don't want anybody else touching it. And this is how it is. And I would present it to him. I'd be like, I know you want to add some stuff to it. I know you want to take some stuff out of it, maybe. But if we're gonna put it out, it's gonna come out exactly how I have it, and that's how it came out.
While touring, for the length of time that you've been touring, what would you say are the big differences between some of the cities that you visit in Toronto? Does Toronto have a form of distinction with its party scene, something that is unique or that is proprietary towards it? That Toronto's an outlier because
I think Toronto, there's old Toronto and then there's new Toronto. Old Toronto rave scene is very what is going on right now, or like in the last couple of years in other places around the world. You know, the rave scene is more back in than the club scene. Um, and when I say rave scenes, like a lot of outdoor stuff, festivals, indoor huge parties that we were doing back then. They're doing them in London, they're doing them in Amsterdam, they're doing them in all over Europe, you know, these types of parties that were once considered raves. They're still calling them, as a matter of fact, they still call them raves. You know what I mean? So raves are definitely back in, where there's multitudes of DJs as opposed to the club events. You know, they've changed since house music has come in. They've become a little bit more commercial than they used to have been. You know, the days of, you know, warehouse parties and house music being heard and only in a select few clubs, that's over. It's heard everywhere. Techno is huge, huger than it's ever been, and in Toronto and in the world in general. You know what I mean? So yeah, Toronto does, it holds a glass up, and they're able to stand up with the best of them. You know, we have that thing that we do on the island, which is really cool. That's just like any huge 5,000 person festival around the world. You know, it's well done, well put together. It's got good artists, good DJs playing, good artists performing, and it's got an audience that is consistent year round. Every party that they do there, you know, they're guaranteed the 4,000 or 5,000, and the shit goes off. You know what I mean? So in Toronto, I enjoy playing at my club when I play, at Vertigo, and I play for my audience, and they're like, they recognize me as both a local and an international DJ, and I feel the love. I feel the love from them, man. So yeah, I think Toronto has a good thing going on. This year of having no club scene and no, outlet for the people to go out and party, it can be a good thing and a bad thing. I'm predicting a good thing that when the time does come, people are going to go off their heads. Hopefully not too much, but go off their heads and party like they never partied before. So
I agree. I think 2022 is going to be a gong show in a good way.
it's going to be a gong show to good way. I'm hoping for it. You know what
Yeah, me too. It feels that way. I think if we're both together and we're saying it right now, that there's a
I mean?
strong probability that that's how it's going to be.
I agree, my friend. I agree.
You've watched the genres of music change and also, I guess, stay the same. House music was part of you when you first started uh, going out to perform as
Hmm.
Kenny Glasgow.
Yep.
House music is still with you now. Why do you think that house music has endured more than the? I mean, I want to have the fast answer with you as well, obviously, because it's the best. But why has it endured? I guess the way some of the other genres of dance music have not, especially since I mean I don't want to give a specific example and get stuck on one thing, but some of the genres had huge darling moments, maybe even in a radio way or in a music video way, both. But still, the perseverance was not there. House music clearly is king for electronic music.
I recognized house music in 1986. That was the first time this genre of music. It was still very small, and the DJs that were playing it were getting the records from Chicago, where house music originated from, New York, and London. They were coming back to Toronto, and um, they were playing records at parties, like at the Diamond Club. Um, Jason Steele, Deadly Headley. These guys were coming in and they were having radio shows as well that were featuring this music called house music. Um, my cousin Eugene also was a follower of the music, who was actually the person who actually got me into this music, this sound, house music. He was going to clubs, after hour parties called the Twilight Zone that was run by the Asun brothers. Um, I would be at his house in the summers. He'd get dressed up. He'd leave the house at 1, come back 1 a.m. Come back at like 1 p.m. the next day, and I'd be like, "Where were you?" And he was like, "I was at this club called the the Twilight Zone." And I was like, "What is kind of music?" And he was like, "House music." I was like, "House music," and then he totally started buying records. His father had a crazy record player, so I used to go there at summers, and I would. This is how I was brought up with the music and with house music. And it moved on. It continued. I realized house music became house music, a music, when it became popular music. Almost became pop. It did kind of become pop music when it hit the clubs, and that's why.
Madonna, Vogue.
Yes, that helped a lot with with branding house music with commercial artists. You know what I mean? Once that happened, it was proof that the music would have longevity, unlike other forms of electronic music. Popular time, I would even say like jungle was huge and it's still big and it still has a following, but the following it had before compared to how it is now is completely different. The music, it was for a younger crowd. Again, house music, it being a 4/4, it being danceable, it having lyrics, it having catchy melodies, makes it possible for it to be something catchy, to catch on, for other people to like it, to sing along to it, to hum the bass line. Once these things are possible with a sound or with a music, that's when you know that, it's got the possibilities to be huge and massive and to blow up. Parties before have gone from 50 people to millions of 500,000 people. I've played Roskilde Festival that had 300,000 400,000 people. These things were never even thought about before. 400,000 people at one festival, one party. I never thought that was possible. You know what I mean? But that's where house music is now. That's the kind of audience it demands. And it's like hip hop, man. When hip hop started, it was an underground sound. Anything that starts out underground, it's gonna have an underground. It's gonna take the flow of how an underground anything starts, gets to a level of where it's accepted by certain people, then it branches off. How just like how hip hop moved and Blondie took it and she did Rapture and started mentioning the DJs in her song Rapture, and then rap music all of a sudden it became this urban sound that everybody was into. White folks, black folks, Asian folks, everybody was just into that sound because it was redirected by someone who was popular, and now it had someone like Blondie, Deborah Harry, pushing that sound. That's all it takes is something like that to happen, and a sound can blow up. And that's what happens with house music.
Is the thing about shopping for music right now? How is that for you? How's that process changed from
Well,
visiting the record stores on shipment day and
much more,
and almost turning into a bit of a Hunger Games scene?
yeah,
And
much,
now it's very personal. You're at home interfacing with the screen.
yeah.
Or are you still record shopping?
I stopped record shopping maybe about 3 years ago, just because I was buying vinyl and I was traveling so much, buying vinyl while I traveled. But even the places where I was playing or where we were playing when I was with Art Department, the turntable setup wasn't good enough, and it was skipping, and it was affecting the sets. And when stuff like that starts to happen, people don't care the turntables if a bomb drops on it. They want to hear it sounding good at all times, and they don't want any excuses. And the last thing you need is someone, oh yeah, I went to go hear Art Department, or I went to go hear Kenny Glasgow play, and the needle was bouncing everywhere. The soundtrack was all over the place, and it was boots in a dryer type thing because he couldn't mix. No, he could mix, but the turntable setup was horrible, and it was making his set sound bad. People don't understand that. So just to eliminate that, I stopped bringing out vinyl, and the traveling with the vinyl, it was getting heavy, man. And just taking vinyl out to not be sure if I'm gonna use it or not, it came to a full stop, and I just stopped buying vinyl. And I figured if I'm gonna play vinyl, I'm gonna play vinyl, older vinyl that is still relevant. This way, it's stuff that people don't have that these new DJs are playing, or the newer DJs that are playing. They're playing great stuff and good stuff, but I have vinyl that's just as good that can keep up with your new vinyl that you don't have and won't have because it was put out 10, 15 years ago, but still maintains the integrity of good music and can still be played with the stuff that you're playing now. That's when I can play, that's when I would like to play vinyl. And I would like to play it in Toronto because it's a short distance from here to any club. I'm not lugging around record crates or having friends dragging my records. You know what I mean? It's easier.
Do you think that's a thing now? How has that transformed into today from the past when it was obvious it made sense to have one or two people, friends with you that would help you carry the music? USB keys are not very heavy, headphones are not very heavy. What's the reason now to provide to promoters?
I I don't know. I mean, even
I needed them here.
even not carrying anything, we still had tour managers, and I always ask myself, why do we have a tour manager? He plugs in our USB keys, and then unplugs it and picks up our headphones and puts them in our cases. I mean, I can do that. Why are we paying somebody to do that? It's like it's not like the days where we had this guy, one guy carrying one side of the crate and the other guy carrying the back side of the, you know, the the recycling bin that you're carrying of records. It's not like that anymore. You're carrying USB keys. They fit in your pocket. They don't need an extra hand to help you, man. It's like it's cool. I'm happy that it's come. I'm surprised that it's come to this, but I'm happy that it has come to having my whole set, like my whole collection on a USB key. You know, I've been able to rock a, a festival to an after party, rock an after party, then go into a hotel party, same USB key, and rock a hotel party on one USB key. That would take 6 of my best friends, 10 crates, carrying them around, you know what I mean? So it's good that we could put music on a USB key, a lot of music, and have it with us you know, doing these kinds of parties.
What about the tactile action? The tactile action of actually being, turning your back to the whole room,
I miss that.
go flipping through.
Yep.
No, that's not the one. Flipping through. I mean, because now what's up? Now you're turning the dial and looking at
That's
a
horrible.
little LED display. I'm
Horrible.
not sure. I haven't used CDJs all that much.
I don't I will be honest. I when it first I was the last out of my whole entire crew to move to CDJs. I was still using vinyl. I was like, I just the feel, the the turning your back and lifting up and pulling out, not even knowing name, but looking and seeing that's a strictly rhythm record because it looks like a strictly rhythm record. It's got the brick wall in red with black outlining in white. It's probably going to be something I want to play. Flip through. It reminded me of another Strictly Rhythm record. So now this is how, because I never have anything planned. Even with vinyl, I'm always like, look, okay, okay. And this record, maybe not what I want to play, but oh, it reminds me of the record that I think I'll play 5 songs from now. The way that I choose what I'm going to play is completely different than turning that pathetic knob on the CDJ, a necessary knob, but it's just doing it. Like the first time I did it, I was like, this is horrible. This is just straight horrible. But a necessary evil. I realized how fast I can get to the tracks. I read the tracks up. I realized that you can get the sort of the same kind of feel once you put it on vinyl, you know. But I still use those
You mean the
CDJ
CDJ mode, like the vinyl versus
vinyl versus
digital, the digital, right?
the digital versus the vinyl mode.
Right.
Well, I never, but that's all I use. I don't do. I use it exactly how I would use a turntable. I don't loop, nothing, nothing. If there's 5 seconds left in the mix, guess what? I better get that other mix going because it's gonna run out. I'm not pushing that
Yeah.
loop button for the life
Yeah.
of me. I've used it maybe once or twice, and I realized that it's cool it's a good tool to have when you only have 5 seconds left. But
Yeah.
I'm just so old school. I would like to keep some of the authenticity of the art of being a DJ there. There's something about that panic that goes on when there's 5 or 6 seconds left in the mix and you know it and you're still queuing up and you still have to find the pitch. Instantly you teach yourself how to just throw it in, put it or raise it up because you've got 3 seconds now and pitch on your way in. This is a different way I learned how to mix, watching guys like Roger S. being in mid conversation or whatever, knowing and seeing he only has 5 seconds, just throw it in, cue it, throw it in, mix it in while you are actually raising the levels. And that's what I learned from Roger, you know what I mean? And that was the great thing about seeing other great DJs. I learned different things from each of them, the ones that I think are really amazing, and I incorporated them and put them all together, and that's how I kind of came up with my style of DJing. You know what I mean? It's like by watching, not by asking, okay, hey, teach me how to DJ, because you can't teach someone how to DJ. You can show them this and this and this and that, but the real teaching comes from them watching and observing. Like I watched Peter and Tyrone and observing and listened to Peter, Tyrone, and Shams play, learned how to program what should come next and why why they chose this song to come next. You know what I mean? There's a lot. Like a DJ has to do to please me now as a DJ. So what? You got the best music out, and your mixing is okay, but you don't know how to put all of that together, or your mixing is shit, but you got good music and you put it together. For me, the most important thing, it's all important, but the most important would have to be programming, and then programming good music, and then mixing, being able to actually mix it. People will forget about the mix if you put on a good song after a horrible mix. You know what I mean? They'll be like, that was horrible. And then they'll be like, yeah, this is awesome. You know what I mean? But if you're playing horrible music, it's hard to get a vibe on in general. The whole combination of the three, programming, good music, and mixing, is the best DJ. But if I had to choose one to be best at, it would be programming, good music.
Is this because of the journey on the dance floor that you think the programming
Absolutely.
and the course of the night, the time that an evening would begin and then the time that the evening would conclude, everything that happens within, is this supposed to be about people that are coming in at the start of the night and that are staying right through to the end? Is
Yes.
this ceremony still celebrated?
No, it's not celebrated because the day of the opening DJ coming to warm up the other DJ, to warm up the head DJ, so the head DJ can feel, okay, it went from here to here to here to here, and then I can play now as a headliner DJ. Those days are over. What happens is the club opens up at 10, and we're all headliner DJs. You have an hour and a half to play. You come in, you bang it out, you bang it out, you bang it out. No one is opening for you anymore. Those days are done. You may be starting the night, but you're not opening. You're not trying to warm up this other DJ. You are getting in the game, and the kids, the people that are there to see you are the same. It's not like they're coming to have a drink at 10 p.m. and they're going to relax until about 12 and everything is planned out. Oh, they start loosening up. They're getting in there and they want to. That's why that opening DJ slot anymore, to the warm up DJ, that's gone, because people are getting in the club now and they just want to start going at it.
What do you
And
think brought about this transformation in the vibe?
I I'm old school, you know what I mean? But nobody really wants to hear an old school opinion unless it's another old school DJ like a Tenaglia, who or like a Richie Houghton on the techno side. He was one of those guys that he knew right away not to hire someone like myself, because I might get excited and get up there and just start banging it out. You know what I mean? He knew to hire someone like maybe the guys he did hire, like a Jeff Milligan, or a Jeremy Caulfield, a Lotus. Those guys, they played the set they were supposed to play for an opening DJ, and I learned that the hard way, playing at industry for a lot of cats. And then I realized, I was like, this is not your show. This is not your show. Your show, to make this show a successful show and everybody's happy and you are happy too, because you kept people on the dance floor, you didn't scare them away, and you didn't make the DJ have to start banging it out. You made him think about his set, and you made him play the kind of set he wanted to play, because you were a good opening DJ, you were a good starting DJ. And I learned how to be an opening DJ. That was my days of DJing, your days of DJing. You know what I mean? But again, playing the rave scene and playing opening having an opening slot in the rave scene and having an opening slot in a warehouse party or in a club scene are two total different things. In the rave scene, you're still coming on and you're playing what you're known for. You're not trying to warm up the next guy. This is the different type of mentalities of the different types of parties. At the warehouse parties and at the clubs, you still got that mentality of, I'm playing 10 o'clock, people are coming in to have a drink, and up until 12, 1, I got to keep it down to this level so people aren't on the dance floor. Club mentality, they're not on the dance floor really, but they're spending their time at the bar, spending money at the bar. That's the difference. Rave culture, these guys come in, they pop a pill, and bam, they're not at the bar spending money. You know what I mean? So that whole essence of the startup DJ having to play a certain way so that the bar makes money, that's gone. That element is gone. All it is now is just a party element of going in and having the best time you can have for that kind of money that you're paying. Again, you're paying $30 to get in as opposed to $10, and you're buying liquor. By the end of it, you're paying more by the booze that you're paying. But you're coming in, you're paying 30. You expect to come in and start jamming instantly, and that was the difference. And it was good because I was playing um, Delirium and Liquid Adrenaline parties. Those were my first rave experiences. So I got to in the house room. I got to see how a party picked those type of parties picked up in comparison to what I would play after I played that party, a warehouse party. It took forever for people to get there. Finally, at 3 hours after the fact, it was busy. There was a lineup at 10 o'clock for people to get in and start listening to DJs. Different culture, the rave culture.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Kenny, can we talk a little bit about what's behind you?
Um, Behind me is what you're seeing is some of my studio. Um, a lot. I decided a long time ago when I was making a hell of a lot more money that I'm gonna invest in something very important, and that would be myself. And I said, what do I love the most that can maintain value in price and I can enjoy, having it here with me, have some enjoyment. And I said, I'm going to build a studio in my apartment. So behind me are just some of the synths that belong to a bigger studio in front of me.
What
And
are
that's
these synths that you've got behind you?
behind me. I'm looking at a Pro 1, a sequential circuit Pro 1, an original Prophet 5, a Korg Trident, a OB6, and a Moog Model D.
Out of these pieces, which is the one that you go to the most, that you're reaching for?
The one that you see will probably be the OB6, but the ones that I reach for the most are in front and to the side, and like right beside me here. The ones that you can only see because my camera is facing this way.
That's okay.
The OB6.
Do you feel a personal connection to the hardware?
I only use hardware. Um, my first studios that I ever owned back in the days in the early 90s, I started with hardware and got into a little bit of software, just to like see what it was about, but always went back to the hardware and have a very personal connection with the pieces that I have in the studio. Um, I just like to have a hands-on kind of feel to my production as opposed to a mouse on.
What about the record bag, the USB key that we talked about? Would you have a song, 3 songs, that you would keep in there, would never leave your side? These are your guaranteed, gonna rock my floor. I love this music. This is the music that we need right now. It's always gonna work. Do you have these tracks?
Uh, I have those tracks for my set, but they change all the time. There's never, again, it all depends on where you're playing, what kind of set you're playing, who you're playing for, it depends on the sound system. Some songs I would play at a bigger party with a bigger sound system because they sound amazing on a bigger sound system, but wouldn't play it in a smaller sound system because it wouldn't sound so good. So those three, you know, they change very often depending on the set. But there is always uh, three go-to songs that, if all else fails and the dance floor isn't where you want it, if I put this song on, it's gonna work.
What are these three?
Those I can't really say at the moment.
Is, is,
Um,
is it a memory thing, or you don't want to spoil the secret weapons?
it's a combination of both. I'm
Okay.
not gonna lie. I haven't played. I haven't, and also Also, I haven't played in a while. I haven't played a set in a while. You know what I mean? To be honest, I haven't played. My last time I played was sometime. I played a proper set to an audience. Was sometime around this time last year. So
Have you thought about doing a live stream? But past the
I've,
Instagram,
I've, I've done a few live streams, but again, I'm not a big fan of the live streams. A, B, uh, it's nothing compared to the real thing, and I just don't feel that I get. I don't know. I don't feel that I give as much as I can or I should be given just because there's not an audience there, and I don't want people to see a weak performance. You know, these are thoughts that go in my head. It could just be it, my own insecurities in my own head. You know what I mean? You're playing for an empty club. How does that feel for you? You know what I mean? So these are thoughts that go through my head, and I just feel like I've been asked to do so many, and I'm just like, you know, I'm gonna pass. The few that I have done, I've been happy with. I've done it one for the club in Toronto that I played for, Vertigo, and I did one for DJ Mag, Alternative DJs, a more techno one. And those were the only two that I thought were worth doing for me and or taking the time for me to do it. Again, I'm not even really set up to do a live set. I had to do both of them at Vertigo nightclub, so it has to be something I really want to do before I do it.
that's this is where I say then thanks a lot for doing this show. Even though we're not doing music, we're just hanging out. I appreciate you still doing the stream.
That's no problem, man. It's no problem, bro.
If we wanted to hear some Kenny Glasgow, where could we go right now to listen to some Kenny Glasgow music?
Uh, at the moment, only the things that I post on my social media, um, which would be Facebook and Instagram, are the places where you'll be able to hear previews of what's to come. What's to come, where you will be able to hear it, will be starting out with the album, the Logan Kenny Glasgow Presents Logan 6 album, which will be coming out beginning week of March on Bandcamp. Again, 10 songs strong, 10 songs I'm really comfortable with and that I'm happy with, that have been mastered and have been played and heard in different environments and stand up to, you know, the other good music that I've been hearing out there. So if you want to hear some Kenny Glasgow, you would, in its fullest, you'd have to wait till the beginning of March, Bandcamp.
It's not so far away. It's actually super soon. Do you
Yeah, it's just around the corner.
do you have this like super like whoa feeling happening inside you right now because you're so close to the release? This is and it
I am.
yeah.
Yesterday, I went over to the club to just for the last listening session to hear it in the club in a club setting, and that's when I got that. Okay, it's ready for the mastering now. I think everything sounds amazing. The track selection is good. They all make sense. Um, it's a good album. It's my third solo album, um, and I think it's a good follow up to the two prior. And because it's a Logan 6 one, I was able to more experiment with the sound because it's, not really Kenny Glasgow, it's Logan 6.
Well, we're going to search for this on Bandcamp. What will the coordinates be like?
Um, at the
Are we
moment,
looking for Kenny Glasgow on Bandcamp and that will take us to Logan 6?
yes, you would be looking at Kenny Glasgow, which would take you to Kenny Glasgow presents Logan 6.
Absolutely awesome sauce. All right,
Thank
listen,
you.
don't hang up. You have been absolutely fantastic with us. Thank you so much for being in the utility room because
Not a
that's
problem.
where we are. Super awesome Kenny Glasgow with us here. My name is Jello.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you